Heightened security right now at the U.S. Capitol as federal security agencies work to prevent a second possible breach. The House even scrapping its schedule for today. The FBI and Homeland Security warning that far-right extremist groups and pro-Trump supporters could riot again today. March 4th is the day conspiracy theorists believe former President Trump will be inaugurated again. Now, according to a memo from the agencies, those groups have discussed plans to storm the U.S. Capitol and take control in an effort to remove Democratic lawmakers. The warnings coming nearly 2 months after the deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol. Senate Democrats are still planning to open debate today on the president's nearly $2 trillion COVID relief bill. But there are concerns about how it will impact all of us here in Georgia. Mara Siriani explains.